I mean, come on, Jeffrey, who doesn't love drawing cards? So Magical Spring is a quickly spell card printed in 2014 that reads, draw a number of cards equal to the number of face-up spell or trap cards your opponent controls, then discard a number of cards equal to the number of face-up spell and trap cards you control. Until the end of your opponent's next turn after this card resolves, spell and trap cards your opponent controls cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. Also, their activations and effects cannot be negated. You can only activate one Magical Spring per turn. I absolutely loved how they had to specify that the spell and trap cards could not be destroyed by battle. Like, how the frick would this happen? So you probably already guessed it, but this card is only a +1 when your opponent has at least 2 or more spell and traps face up on the field, and when you actually discard a card of value. Otherwise, you would kind of require your opponent to have at least 3 or more spells and traps, because you have to commit 1 card for the Magical Spring, and then discard at least 1 card, obviously assuming that you don't have any other face-up spell and traps when you are using Magical Spring. Fortunately, there are some workarounds. Against a deck like DDD, I could actually see Magical Spring being absolutely huge, because the Gilgamesh easily gets you your 2 skills, and then you have your Dark Contract staying on the field with potentially the field spell as well. So you could, in theory, draw up to 6 cards. It includes the field spell as well. Against any pendulum-based strategy, it is very easy to get at least 2 draws from Magical Spring. Not to mention that the discard off of Magical Spring can also almost be something that you are actually trying to go for. For example, if you're discarding a card like Shadow Beast or Farfa or whatever, so anything that really enjoys discarding cards, like if you have danger cards, for example, and you're discarding Bigfoot, you can actually interrupt your opponent during your opponent's turn on top of drawing cards for consistency. One really cool thing is that if you're playing Dragon Link, there's a way to disregard the discard drawback of Magical Spring. For example, your opponent has a bunch of spells and traps on the field, whatever. You go for Magical Spring and then you go Rocket Tracer, destroy your own Magical Spring. So on the resolution of your Magical Spring, you technically control 0 face-up spells and traps, so you don't have to discard anything, but you still get all those draws. So you can actually draw up to freaking 6 cards with 1 single Magical Spring and discard 0. And this is a competitive deck that I'm talking about, so this card already has meta relevance, but of course there are a lot of casual decks and rogue decks, whatever, that can use Magical Spring really well. And by the way, it's a quickly spell card, which obviously is relevant for multiple reasons, but one extremely important thing is that you can use it on your draw phase to draw a lot of cards and be safe from Droll Logbird, because Droll Logbird cannot be used during the draw phase. It can be used in literally any other situations, but not draw phase. It also does not conflict with Pot of Extravagance, because unlike Prosperity, Extravagance only locks you out of drawing for the rest of the turn. So of course, if you use a card like Magical Spring on draw phase, you're actually going to be good and you're going to be able to use your Extravagance right after. Even though this initially started out by being an anti-pendulum card, the card ended up being played in a lot of people's side deck, especially against True Draco, because the deck would end on a lot of face-up spells and traps, and especially trap cards now, because you would be playing Floodgates like There Can Only Be One, Skill Drain, Monarch's Erupt, whatever, and the diagram would always be there with maybe True Draco Heritage, True King's Return, Apocalypse, Disciples, whatever. So when you take into consideration the fact that literally all their cards are continuous, every single Magical Spring that you use is going to be really juicy, and even though it is once per turn, you can use 1 Magical Spring on your turn and 1 Magical Spring on your opponent's turn, so redundancy is never really an issue. You could kind of say that the fact that your opponent's cards become undestructible and unnegatable is an issue, but at the same time, if your plan is just going for Zeus to send everything, that's already a keyword that kind of just makes it so you don't really have to care. And even the undestructibility is very irrelevant if you're playing cards like Cosmic Cyclone, Evenly Matched, whatever, because you're not even trying to destroy the cards, you're just banishing them. And I mean, yeah, if you don't play cards like Solemn Judgment, Ash, or whatever else that negates spells and traps, you really don't have to be afraid of the drawback of Magical Spring ever. So as I said, any deck that can benefit off of the discards or work around the discard drawback by destroying your own cards, such as Rocket Tracer, so Dragon Link for example, can benefit off of this card very well. By the way, this might sound really hilarious, but preventing your opponent from destroying their own spells and traps can actually be an interruption in a way indirectly. For example, the diagram would no longer allow your opponent to destroy their own spells and traps. The Magical Spring doesn't really apply to just you destroying your opponent's cards. It's even your opponent can't destroy their own cards. Yeah, if there's like ever a competitive strategy that loses to that really hard because you have to destroy your own spells and traps to play, this could actually be top tier. So in conclusion, this card is absolutely amazing. It definitely should be considered at least in the testing and in the side decking process of your gameplay. But that's pretty much it. I don't know what you guys actually think of this card, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.